Okay, so picture this. Buried deep inside a massive government funding bill, there's just one single sentence. And it has nothing to do with roads or healthcare. Nope. This little sentence could end up costing taxpayers millions of dollars. And it's kicking off a huge clash over the very nature of power in Washington. And this is the number right at the heart of the whole story. $500,000. But wait a minute, you have to look closer. That's not the total payout. No. That's the potential payout for each individual senator. And guess where that money would come from? Yep, straight from taxpayers. So the big question is, right? How is this even possible? I mean, how can a law create a special VIP path for politicians to potentially get a multi-million-dollar payout from the very government they're supposed to be running? It sounds kind of wild, doesn't it? Okay, let's break this whole thing down. All right, the mechanism here is something called a private right of action. I know, that sounds super technical, like a bunch of legal jargon. But just think of it like this. It's like a special key, one that's custom-made to unlock the courthouse door for a very, very specific group of people. And in this case, that group is just 8 senators. And here you have them, the 8 senators at the very center of all this. You know, this isn't some abstract legal theory we're talking about. This provision was literally written to benefit these 8 specific individuals. It makes it crystal clear exactly who stands to gain from it. Okay, so why? Why do these senators feel like they need this special golden ticket to the courthouse? Well, it all boils down to the central accusation they're making. So, you've probably heard the claim. It's pretty explosive, right? Using phrases like, the FBI tapped my phone. But the reality of what actually happened is a little different. The investigation wasn't listening in on anybody's conversations. What the special counsel actually subpoenaed were call logs. You know, just the records of who called who, when they called, and how long they talked. Not a single word of what was actually said. And believe me, that distinction is absolutely critical to understanding this whole thing. So, the senator's argument is that even just looking at their call logs, not the conversations, just the logs, violates a really core constitutional protection they have. You can think of it like a constitutional force field that surrounds members of Congress. And it has a name. It's called the Speech or Debate Clause. And hey, just so you know, we're getting this right. We're going straight to the source. All of our understanding of this clause is grounded in totally nonpartisan research from the Congressional Research Service. I mean, this is the agency that gives legal analysis directly to Congress itself. So it's the real deal. And here it is, the text itself, straight from the Constitution. For any speech or debate in either house, they shall not be questioned in any other place. What that really means is this clause was designed to protect the independence of Congress. The whole idea was to stop a president or a judge from, using lawsuits or prosecutions to intimidate or harass lawmakers and stop them from doing their jobs. But, and this is a really big but, that constitutional force field, it doesn't cover everything. It only covers official legislative acts. And you can see here, this lays out the boundaries pretty clearly. Stuff like speaking on the Senate floor or voting on a bill, yep, protected. But something like accepting a bribe or giving a campaign speech, not so much. So the entire case, the whole thing, really hinges on one single question. Were these phone calls a protected legislative act? All right, so if the senators really believe their constitutional force field was breached, you might be wondering, why can't they just sue? Well, that brings us to the second major legal hurdle we need to understand. It's a concept called legal standing. Okay, to put it really simply, you can't just sue someone because you're mad about something. It doesn't work that way. You have to walk into court and prove that you, personally, have suffered a direct, concrete injury. You need to have what they call a personal stake in the outcome. If you don't have that, the courthouse doors are pretty much locked. And this is where it all comes together. This is the whole strategy, the legislative workaround. So step 1, the hurdle. You need legal standing. Step 2, the problem. It's frankly not very clear if having your call logs looked at actually counts as a direct injury that gives you standing. So what's the workaround? That's step 3. This special provision in the funding bill, it creates that private right of action, which is basically Congress telling the courts, hey, you know those normal rules? Yeah, forget them, at least for these 8 people. Their ticket to sue is already punched. Okay, so now we get the legal mechanics of it all. But the question is, why? Why go through all this trouble? Why stick this really complex legal maneuver into a giant must-pass funding bill? Well, to answer that, we have to step out of the courtroom and onto the campaign trail. And, this quote from political scientist Matt Glassman really gets to the heart of it. He says members do everything they can to avoid primary challengers. And that's key. See, in today's politics, for a lot of these folks, the biggest threat isn't someone from the other party. It's a primary challenger from their own party. So when you see actions like this, picking a huge, high-profile fight, claiming you're being targeted, it's not always just about the law. It's about sending a signal to your most passionate voters that you're a fighter, that you're on their side. And this is why this story is so much bigger than just the daily headlines. This whole episode, really, it's a massive stress test on our entire system of government. You've got the power of Congress to protect itself, clashing with the power of the executive branch to investigate potential crimes, and the power of the courts to interpret the rules. It's a classic constitutional tug-of-war over the separation of powers. Which, of course, leaves us with one final and I think really crucial question to think about. That constitutional force field we talked about, the speech or debate clause. It was designed to be a shield, right? To protect lawmakers so they could do their jobs for the people. But what happens when that shield starts to look more like a political weapon? A weapon that's funded by the very people it was meant to protect. Who protects the public then?